Um, I'm Trista, or Christopher, Tabitha, Tibia, whatever you would like to call me. I'll probably answer. And today, I'll be speaking, and we've been in a sermon series called "The Stories We Tell," and it's where we'll tell a story from the Bible, and then we'll tell a story about how that story relates to our life and what you can get out of it. Yeah, so today I'll be talking about, that work? Okay. Um, Today we'll be talking about David and Bathsheba. So if everyone can get out their Bibles and turn to 2 Samuel chapter 11. Yeah, chapter 11 verses, yeah, just all of chapter 11. Yeah. As you're turning there, I'll give you a little bit of backstory of what's happening at the time. So most people know who King David is. He had done great things for the kingdom of God. Most people know him from David and Goliath. He also held high ranks in the army and became the king of Israel. Yeah, he succeeded greatly as a king. He, up to this time point, was basically on cloud nine. Like, everyone loved him. He'd been, like, the most perfect king out there. Um, Hate to break it to you, he made a terrible mistake. And that's what we're going to talk about. Okay, so starting out in verse 11, not verse 11, verse 1, it says, "In the spring of the year, the time when the kings came out to battle, David sent Joab his servants to him and all of Israel. Yeah, um, they ravaged the Ammonites and besides Rabbath, but David remained in Jerusalem. It happened on a late afternoon, when David arose from the couch and was walking on the roof of the king's house, that he saw from the roof a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful. And David sent an inquiry and inquired about the woman, and one said, 'It is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?' When David sent messengers and took her, she came to him and they lay with her. Now he'd been purifying herself from the uncleanliness. Then she returned to her house, and the woman conceived, and she sent and told David that I'm pregnant. Y'all, this was a big deal at the time. Um, David committed adultery. And in this time frame, if you committed adultery, like, you'd get killed. And the fact that it was a king doing it, if people found out about it, it would be a huge deal. And yeah, so the consequences were Bathsheba got pregnant, and David was like, oh crap. And so he could have done the right thing and been like, yeah, I messed up, but he made it worse. David sent an army out. So Uriah was he was one of the like higher up men in the army. So David decided that Uriah was Bathsheba's husband, by the way. David decided that he was gonna kill him because the only way that the pregnancy was gonna work out is if they were married. That was a very bad idea. And so because of that, yeah, just a little overview of that. So David found a way so that Uriah would be killed in battle to not have the blame on him, so no one would know that he was the one that actually did it. And yeah. So next thing that happens is Nathan came to David and basically told him that, yeah, you messed up, so I'm going to kill the baby you're about to have. So yeah, that was not ideal. And David realized that he was literally at his lowest of lows. And he, like, yeah, he was, like, just so messed up. He was like, everyone hates me. Like, I'm literally, like, life could not get any worse. And so for a while there, he just, like, stayed in the lows, but then he decided, he was like, I need to do something about this. So he looked to the Lord. And then in chapter 12 of 2 Samuel, verse 13, David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan said to David, the Lord has also put away your sin. You shall not die. Nevertheless, because of this, you have utterly scorned the Lord. The child was born that shall die. So that was his consequence from it. So that's what the Lord told him. But, so David decided that even though he knows his son's about to die, I'm still going to look to the Lord in this situation. And so he goes on to pray this prayer to the Lord almost every single day. And David actually wrote this prayer in Psalms 51. I think we're going to have it up on the screen so you don't have to turn there. But, so Psalms 51 says, have mercy on me, O God, according to your steadfast love, according to your abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly through my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you, you only have I sinned, and have done what is evil in your sight, so that I may be justified in your words and blameless in your judgment. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity and in sin, and did my mother conceive me. Behold, you delight in the truth and the inward being, and you teach me wisdom and in secret heart. So David went on and prayed this prayer every single day. And so he began to get closer with the Lord. And so as he was closer with the Lord, actually, let's backtrack a little bit. I forgot to mention something. One of the most important parts. Whenever their baby was about to be born, the Lord said something that is about, like, the most important part of his whole story. And it's whenever the baby's born, it says, David comforted his wife Bathsheba and went into her and lay with her, and she bore a son, and he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him. That is probably one of the most important statements in this whole passage, if not the most important. The Lord loved him. In all of the terrible acts, committing adultery, committing murder, the Lord still loved him. So yeah, that's that story. Now I'm going to relate that back to my life. And you may be wondering, Trista, you did not commit adultery or murder, thank goodness. What could you have done that equals that? Well, so being sort of like David, growing up, I was the perfect little angel of my family. I never got in trouble. I made straight A's. I was on every single team you could imagine. I was like the golden child compared to my brother, just saying. But then one day I was on a school trip in Galveston, and I made a big mistake. I decided to drink on a school trip, which was not the brightest idea. And at the time, I was like, no, I'm just the best. Like, no one's gonna realize that I did this, because it happens all the time. But a few weeks after, I realized that, like, oh yeah, brushed it off. No one knows about it. And then I hear, Trista, you need to go to the principal's office. And I was like, oh crap. Yeah. So turns out that the administration did find out about the drinking on the trip, and I had to go to DAEP. If y'all don't know what that is, it is like hell. So just a little overview of it. So first of all, I had to wear black sweatpants and a little polo top that said Reese on it, because it was at Friendship, because Ropes doesn't have that. So anytime I needed something, I would have to say permission. So anytime I'd have to walk into a room, I'd have to be like, permission to enter, and they'd say permission granted, and then I'd be able to step in. If I needed to like approach a desk, I'd have to raise my hand and be like, permission to approach, and then they'd allow me to go up there. So that sucked. Also, we had to be like super focused on our work. So say like I got bored and like decided to look to the back of the classroom, I'd have to go and do either duck walks with a tire over my head, or I'd have to do towel pushes. So that also sucked. Um, and then we'd have to work out in like the heat and sweatpants every single day, as well as eating school cafeteria food. I have grown up like taking my lunch every day, so that honestly was probably one of the worst parts because it was so gross. Yeah, I hated it. So as you can tell, that was like terrible for me. I was at my lowest of lows. I had lost all my friends, and on top of that, I was still going out and partying on the weekends. Not smart, but it was just what happened. Yeah, so I had lost my relationship with the Lord. I would go to church on Sundays, and I would tune it out. And I also got a job at the time, and so I'd schedule myself on Wednesdays so that I wouldn't have to go to Wednesday night church. Yeah, so I was doing terrible. And then I finally decided one day that, Trista, I know you want to pity yourself, but you can't any longer. So I went and talked to people. I went and talked to my former youth pastor at the time, and he got me in touch with some great people. And he told me what I really just need to do is I need to get back in touch with the Lord. So I prayed a very similar prayer that David did in that situation, where I was just like, I know I've sinned, but please forgive me, Lord. I know I've done this, but just please forgive me. I want a relationship with you. And as you can clearly tell, that I've gotten a whole lot closer with the Lord since then. But similar situation to David, whenever I thought I was at my lows and had no one with me, unknowingly the Lord was still with me. He still loved me. And I think that's what connected me with David most, is the fact that we both screwed up real bad, but the Lord still loved me. He didn't care the fact that we'd both done terrible things. He just knew that we were his children and that he loved us. And so, yeah, my Bible actually has like a little side part, like an explanation of what was going on with David at the time. And I think it's a perfect example of what happens to a lot of us in our life. So it says, even so God quickly made it clear that he had not abandoned his covenant with David. Look what he said to David's newborn son Solomon. The Lord loved him. Even in the chaos that was about to break loose, God will not let his promises fail. God made a promise to me whenever I was really young, I made a promise to him that we were going to be in a relationship together, even though sometimes it may be very distant and we may be really close. We still had that relationship even when I didn't see that. But yeah, those two, the fact that the Lord loved us both in the sucky situations is just such powerful to me. So the three things that I would take away, the most important one, so if you haven't listened to any of this, I just want you to know that you are loved. You are loved by so many people. Even if you think that you're the most hated person in the world, the Lord still loves you, and there's people out there that love you. And my next point is that you are not defined by your mistakes. Everyone screws up in their life. Some may be bigger than others, but those mistakes should not define who you are as a human. Whenever you look at yourself, you shouldn't see like, oh, I'm Trista. I'm the person that drank on a trip and had to go to DAP for it. No, I look at myself and I go, I'm Trista. I'm a child of God. I'm someone that loves Jesus and want to build my life upon him. And then the third point I want to make is that you are never too broken for God. Like I said, you could screw up so much, but God will be right by your side. When you're in the pit, he will come sit in the pit with you, until you're ready to come up. He will wait with you. He will be by your side every second of the way, because he loves you, and he knows that you're human. He knows that you screw up, but he still wants to be there for you. He still wants to love you. And so as we go back into a time of worship, I just want you to think about the fact that you're loved. And even if you don't see that you're loved, I just want you to know that you're loved. And I want you to just sit and think about the fact that the Lord will literally do anything for you, and that he's there for you. In all the sucky situations, he's there. He may be at the end of the tunnel, but he's there. And that, that you're just loved. So, yeah. Can you please pray with me as we enter back into worship? Dear Lord, please just meet every single one of these students where they're at, Lord. Whether they're right next to you or whether they may be in the distance, let them know that you're there, Lord. Let them know that you love them, that they are loved by so many people, Lord. And I pray that in this time of worship, that you just take care of them, and that you show them that your love conquers all things, all the mistakes, all the sucky situations, that your love is greater than all of it. I just pray for these students and whatever they're in, that they can just see you and get to know you and get to love you just like you love them.